Welcome back. So we're going to try to get this valve mounted, and if you watched my previous video, this is a universal kit from Summit Hydraulics, and it comes with just a bracket, and I need to get this mounted on the tractor. That way I can get this grapple working. The screws that come to mount the bracket to the plate are a little long, so I just have some thick washers in there right now. I will replace it with the correct length bolts later. So I've got this on here, but I need to get the valve on there. That way I can go and try it in different places and see what is the best location to mount this. The valve comes with this cover plate on here. I don't want to take it off until I'm ready to install it, just to keep contamination out of the valve. So I took one of the mounting screws for the valve, pushed through there and popped a couple of them plugs out, and then I'll mount this to the plate, and then we can go try it in different locations and see what's going to work best. This does come with a full set of instructions on how to do this. On the one side of the valve there is a P, and it needs to go to the same side as this locating pin hole. Some valves do have a locating pin in them, this one does not, but it needs to go in that orientation. That way all your ports line up. With that snug down, we can take this thing over and figure out a location that we want to mount this. In the last video, I wanted to mount this back here behind this support for the loader valve. And to do that, I'm going to have to build a bracket, because there's 3 bolts. Lighting's not real good, otherwise I'd try to get you a picture back here. But there's 3 bolts that hold this frame, or this support, to this arm. And of course, it's not square to where you can just pull some measurements. I mean, I could do the math and figure it all out, but we're gonna make it simpler than that. Something like that there is what looks the best to me. And we can go up a little bit or whatever if need be. Now I need to get something to mount this plate to here. I took all 3 bolts out of this support and took a piece of cardboard and pressed it to where it would give me the outline of all the mounting holes. And then this one edge follows this right here, this straight line of this bracket. So I'm gonna go get this cut out, and then we'll get some metal and trace this pattern out on a piece of metal and see if we can't get a bracket made. I went through and sort of kind of traced that so you could see how stuff doesn't really, makes it a little hard to pull measurements and make something. I guess I could from these points here and then figure out how far it is there. This is a whole lot easier. And then I can make my bracket longer or whatever I want to do to make this work. Alright, now I'll get it cut up. Well, I forgot to grab the camera. So I'll show you guys sort of what I'm working on to try to build this bracket. Somebody got a piece of metal too narrow. So 3 inch, this piece was 36 inches long, 3 inches wide. Well, with my template, that 3 inches was too narrow. So what I decided to do, instead of going and getting another piece, because they don't offer anything else at Tractor Supply, this is, as far as this thickness, this is 3/16, or at least at my Tractor Supply. Maybe they do other ones, I don't know. The other thing was to go to the scrap yard. They're closed today. They're not open on weekends. I could order the piece. I don't want to wait. I went and beveled one edge of each piece, put them in the vise, went through each side, tacking it. That way I'm hopefully less likely to bow that thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and weld this guy up and then clean the weld back off Then I'll lay this template out on there and try to get it cut out. So, worst case, I end up bowing it and won't be able to straighten it. I'll have to start over. Well, now we need to cool it off. Another plus to living up north. I'll let that thing cool down, and then I'll get it cleaned up. Then we can lay out this template down there and try to get a bracket built. After some grinding and laying the template out on this piece of metal, this is what I've got so far. And we're gonna try it and see how it works. I've left this part here on just in case I need to move that bracket over for the valve. I might be able to when it still works. So we'll see if my bolt holes line up. So there's those 3 holes. One there, one there, one there. So let's see if this bracket's gonna fit. I'm gonna lose my light for a minute, so just hold with me. So here's that plate bolted in. All my bolt holes lined up. I was able to run all these in with my fingers. So that worked out good there. Now we'll see about mounting this valve on here. So if I mount that valve right there, it's sort of going to be in the way of the lines, the hydraulic lines going across the top of it. So I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is something like that. It'll be over top of those bolts right there. So what I'm going to have to do is weld some nuts onto that plate in between those 2 bolts that I can mount this plate to. And then I think it'll just sort of sit like so. Maybe it'll work. I think that's going to give me enough clearance for my hoses to run out the top and to connect to the bottom. Now I need to figure out what size bolt I'm putting this, because I got to space it off where it's thicker than the existing bolts that are in here holding the support for the loader valve. And I don't think what I have in my pocket is going to work. Rethink this just a little bit. Or we do some little bit of redneck engineering. Really don't want to, but I'll come up with something. Give me just a little while. Well, everyone, I come up with the idea to go purchase a couple of these I think they're called rod nuts, 3/8/16, and then I went and cut it in half, and it was still a little bit too long, so I cut a little bit off of each of them to where I have these coming off of here for the valve bracket to mount to. Got them all welded up. So I'm gonna throw this thing on there and mount the valve, and I'll back this tractor outside, and hopefully you guys will be able to see what it looks like. Well, sitting up here on the tractor, you get a pretty good view of it. But that's it, sitting here. Now we'll go around the other side. There's another view of it mounted. Like I said, those bolts that mount the block to the plate, I have to shorten them or get some shorter ones. And then the ones that mount the plate to the bracket that I built, those bolts are too long. So I will end up shortening those bolts because they only offered 1 inch where I went and got them. Now with this in here, I did make sure that I can still get to the dipstick to check the oil level. And I made sure I was going to still be able to pull this panel out for any servicing and I can. So I think that that's going to work out pretty good where I have it mounted at. I think it's going to be out of the way. I have plenty of room on the bottom to run my lines out, one down and then one back to the loader valve. I have room for these lines to come up. So that took me about half the day. Probably a little fancier than what it needs to be, but it works. So I'm gonna pull this piece back off, wire wheel it, clean it up, and then I'm gonna throw some paint on it. Both brackets, the one that came with the valve kit and then the one I built. And then tomorrow I'll mount that back on there. And last night, after I got the tractor pulled back in here, I pulled these brackets back off. Went ahead and painted them up John Deere green. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these put back on and get the valve block put on here. I'm not gonna put the valve on yet until I get all the hoses made, because I will end up pulling the block back off and cleaning it, make sure there's no contamination in it before I put it on, along with the hoses. Now, I got to thinking about this after I was painting this thing last night. I probably could have done this a whole lot easier or a different way. This is just what I came up with. And I like the way it mounts. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with it in the future. And who knows, maybe some other manufacturer will see this and like it and try to do something similar. I don't know. Maybe not. All right, I'm gonna get this stuff mounted on here. Show you guys what it looks like. I did put the handle on this morning while I was trying to wait for the garage to warm up. There's 3 little sleeves that go inside here, depending on the size shaft that you have on your handle. This one here, it took all 3 of them, and then I just snugged it all down. I may end up repositioning this handle a little bit once I'm sitting on the tractor and I get everything hooked up. So let's get this in place and we'll get the valve block on there. Well, I think that looks pretty good. Try to get you another view of it. Here's another view. I think that's going to work out fairly well. Here's a little bit closer view of the handle. Inside there's those sleeves. I guess I should have took a video of it while I was doing it, but I'm going to call it a weekend. Now, like I said, there's other ways of doing this. This is just my way. And I think when it's all said and done, it'll look, professional, I hope, or halfway professional. All right. You guys have a good one. Thanks for watching. And I will get this put together as soon as I can.